with my connection, storm coming through, and it's making my internet connection unstable for my streaming software. And I'm live on my other platforms. Oh my God, this is a testament to just getting it done. Can I tell you about that? We have to just get it done. We went through 2 songs. We had to get up and we had to be fine while doing it. It didn't matter. We just have to do it and get it done. Why? Because at the end of the day, we had to be fine and we had to get up and keep going. It's just that simple. Whew. Because mindset matters. Everything, the sun still hasn't shown up. Things go wrong. You can calculate things to go A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, all you want. But at the end of the end, when you calculate the cost, after you've done all the planning, things can go left. You have to take a detour. You have to be fine, and you have to keep getting up. It's just, that's it, that's all. Matter of fact, that could be the whole live, that could be the whole message. 2 minutes, done. But I'm gonna have something else for you because this is Contracting Chatter where we talk about all things business and all things government contracting. And somebody is listening to this message, or you're listening at 7:43 in the AM, or you catching a replay. They're saying to themselves, why is she talking about mindset? Because if you don't get and maintain a mindset to keep going, to keep getting up, to be fine. I'm not saying you don't recognize the hardships. I am not saying that you don't face adversity. I am not saying you don't realize, good morning, Bunny. You don't realize that things are, people be peopling, business be businessing, that well-laid and crafted plans go awry. That is not what I'm saying, but what I am saying is that there are times that you go through all of that, you still have to get on up. You still have to, like what you see when you look at the mirror, you still have to be fine at the end of it all. Because your mindset matters. You'll receive bad news, and guess what? You still have to keep getting on up. You can't sit in what I call the spin forever. That was something I learned when I started my business. I received bad news after bad news after bad news. Child, I thought it was bad news week. I thought it was bad news month. But guess what? I sat in the spin so long until somebody told me you have 2 choices, lay down or get up. I got up because nobody was coming to get me but me. Nobody was going to do it for me but me. She gave me a word, and what could I do? I could either act on the word or I can lay and ignore the word. I acted on the word. You have to keep going. Unfair bidding practices, honey, you ain't blind, you saw it. But you had to keep getting up. But let me tell you something about unfair bidding processes. It stings them in the end because that is what the process of, and it fell out my head, you can actually file a grievance against unfair bidding processes on the federal level. You can do it on a state level too, but on a state level, they tend to be a little petty with you. On the federal process, there are protections to protect you. On the state level, they get a little petty when you do it. I'm not saying you don't do it. I'm just saying you have to calculate your costs. Because something I learned when I was in corporate, I worked for one of the top 50 government contractors. And even they calculated every time a bid protest. Every time they did a bid protest, they even said, is it worth it? And that was at that time, a $10 billion company. And even they had to say, is it worth it? Bid protests are things that you have to calculate the cost. And you even have to, and then even then you have to say, I need to get on up because they're expensive. Hey Mo, they're expensive and they're timely. So you can recognize that they're unfair, learn a lesson from it. Because let me tell you, there's a lesson in there. Because they're going to have to come back to you eventually. And you already know their game. You already know how they operate. You already know how this, because they told you something that they didn't want to tell you. Oh, you have to read between the lines. They were forced to tell you something because they didn't want to tell you, but they told it anyway. You have to read between the lines and you have to learn in the process. There's a lesson all there. Because the one thing I believe as a believer, if you're not a believer, just be quiet and let me give this lessons to believers. When you're a believer, the Most High always makes your enemy tell you things they don't want to tell you. And that's a lesson for this morning for the believers in business. Moving on next. You have to keep getting up. You don't lay down at their feet. Ay, 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 ay. You have to keep getting up. You have to be fine at the end of the day. You have to look through and push through. Because it always spins the block. Because guess what we did after that conversation? We decoded a new RFP, went through, performed some additional research, obtain a better understanding so we can position for the win. Is that not what we did? We took a lesson to position for a win. That's it. That's all. You don't sit in it. You relish and you glory in it. Because I'm going to go here. Their process showed you they'd have been terrible to work with. Their process showed you what their billing processes would be like. Their process showed you. Their process showed you. Then can I tell you what else their process showed you? Their process showed you you'd have submitted your invoice on the second, and you probably would have had to submit a complaint because your bill didn't get paid when it's supposed to get paid. Your process showed you a whole lot. There were a lot of lessons you learned. So when you spin the block to bid with them again, because you will be sound and mature. You'll be just fine. And you'll be in a better position to work with them. Because I'm going to tell you something else. They wanted you to say, oh, I can lower my prices. You will not. They wanted you to say, well, I can make this concession and I can make that concession. You will not. Something you have to learn in business. There are times you can negotiate, and there are times your price is your price. Performing a service at a deficit, and you can't pay your bills, you still stressed, you still can't pay your bills, you still working 3 jobs on the side. What's the strategy in that? You still have to be fine at the end of the day. You still have to be able to get up at the end of the day. So what is the strategy in lowering your prices to the point you're still crippled? Is there a time that you offer reduced price services? Yes. And let me tell you, the people who do it are doing it as a gateway and a pathway to a higher level, a higher ticket service. Don't let nobody fool you. Ain't nobody giving away nothing and they still in poverty. Nobody's doing that. Not in business, not a wise person. You're always supposed to seek wise counsel. Good morning, Zeke. And that is not wise. So you're reducing your price to obtain work, and you can't pay your bills, you can't pay your staff, your lights are getting cut off, and your hair is falling out. Make that make sense? So as I said when I got started, you have to get up. Everybody is not your client. You still have to look at yourself in the mirror and like what you see. And if you can't do either of those things, there is something functional that you need to review within yourself. And then make the appropriate adjustments. I'm going to say it again. Make the appropriate adjustments. Because at the end of the day, you are in business to provide a service to an end client that will appreciate the solution that you bring that solves the problem that have been keeping them up at night. And you should not be kept up at night bringing them their solution. Does that make sense? You should not be suffering to be somebody else's answer. My mentor said it best on Sunday. Your purpose is somebody else's answer. And you were endowed with that purpose to answer somebody else's question. And giving somebody that answer does not mean you suffer providing that answer. Now that was me. He gave the first part. I get added on my last part. Your suffering is not required because the yoke is easy and the burden is light. We need to put that together. If all those who don't believe in that scripture, then that wasn't for you. That's for those who believe in that. For all of you who believe in suffering long, that message wasn't for you. You're going to keep suffering long. I believe in the yoke is easy and the burden is light. Not that you don't go through things. Just that I know when I do it with a wisdom that surpasses. When I apply a wisdom that is not sourced through me, it alters things. And it straightens the pathways. When I take off the lid of trying to do it myself and bring on mentors, that mentor is my answer. That mentor acting, good morning, Sharon, I need to talk to you. That mentor acting in their purpose is providing me my answer and my solution. Come on, we all acting in our purpose. We all have to get up. We all have to look in the mirror and like what we see. We can't just keep staying in the spin. Am I making sense to anybody? And if this is resonating with anybody, share the live. Share this. I don't care if you're listening to this at 7:56 a.m. on September 17th, or if you're listening to it in the evening. If you're listening to it 10 years from now, if this makes sense, share it through your network, tag your business friend. Somebody is going through something, share it with them. Because at the end of the day, we're all experiencing, or we will all experience something that we're going to need the reminder that we have to keep getting up. We have to look in that mirror and like what we see and be fine with what we're going through. Be fine with the aftermath of what we went through. Does that make sense? All I want to do is bring you a little motivation this morning, a little something that's going to allow you to get up and keep trying, because these contracts are coming out. Somebody received some disturbing news, because remember, your answer is yes or not yet. Somebody received a not yet yesterday. That's okay. Right to the next one. Somebody's looking at an RFP and the timelines and the due dates don't make sense. Right to it anyway. Somebody is going to open their emails today and receive a not yet. Keep writing. Because you have to keep getting up. You have to stay motivated. And you have to keep looking in the mirror and like what you see and say and be fine. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And with that, I will see you all tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for another edition of Contracting Chatter. I am your host, Luciana Turner, the founder of the LT&A Consulting Group. I'll see you all later. It is a compliance factor to everything. And I'll talk about that on tomorrow. Have an amazing one.